I'm Alexandra, 34. I never thought I'd be the one to put my entire family out on the street. But when you discover you've paid $105,000 in mortgage payments over the past 7 years on a house that's in your name and your mother's, only to find out she secretly tried to transfer half the property to your younger brother, something inside you just changes. I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I didn't even confront them immediately. For weeks, I acted completely normal while consulting with lawyers. I cooked their meals. I cleaned their messes. I smiled at their jokes. At the Christmas dinner, my mother noticed my coldness. In a moment of confrontation, she looked me in the eyes and said words I'll never forget. "Your presence here is a disgrace to us." I just smiled, finished my dinner, and in the weeks that followed, after carefully consulting with lawyers, initiated the legal process that would, 6 months later, result in the forced sale of the house. Christmas has never been the same for them since then. I'm recording this video from my new apartment in California, where I secured a transfer at work. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by the people who should have loved you the most. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. The night I found those documents, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely take photos of them. But I didn't let a single tear fall. Not yet. There would be time for that later, when I was alone in my car, parked at the empty shopping mall parking lot at 2 a.m. Growing up, my mother always told me I was too emotional, that I needed to toughen up. Well, Mom, I hope you're proud of how tough I've become. The thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. It comes from the people you thought you could trust with your life, the people you've sacrificed everything for. 7 years of my life. 7 years of working overtime to make those $250 monthly payments. 7 years of postponing my own dreams so that my mother would have a secure place to live after her cancer treatment. "Alex is so responsible," she would tell the neighbors with this proud smile on her face. As if my responsibility was some kind of personality quirk, not a necessity forced upon me since childhood while my brother got to live his life freely. Every time I brought contractors to renovate parts of the house using my own money, my mother would hover around, making sure they knew it was her house. The kitchen renovation alone cost me $12,700 in 2019. The bathroom, another $8,400 in 2022. I still remember the contractor asking, "So you're investing a lot in your mom's place, huh?" And me correcting him, "Actually, I'm a co-owner." The look of confusion on his face when my mother quickly interjected, "Oh, it's just a formality for the mortgage, isn't it, Alex?" I should have seen the signs. They were all there, bright as day. But you know what they say about hindsight. That Christmas dinner was the culmination of years of disrespect, years of being taken for granted, years of being treated like an ATM with legs instead of a daughter and sister. When my mother called my presence a disgrace, my brother Ryan didn't even look up from his plate. His wife Melissa at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. The silence around the table was deafening. I could have flipped the table, could have screamed all the truths I had been holding back, could have thrown the documents in their faces right then and there. Instead, I took another bite of the turkey I had spent hours preparing, sipped the wine I had carefully selected, and planned my next steps with the precision of a surgeon. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't served hot with screaming and drama. Sometimes, it's served ice cold, with a smile, and the full force of the law behind it. The daughter who always sacrificed. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a middle-class family where money was always tight, especially after my father passed away when I was 12. Ryan, my brother, 3 years younger, 3 years, was always my mother's favorite. "He has your father's eyes," she used to say. While I started working at 16 to help with bills, Ryan was encouraged to focus on his studies. When our mother was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2010, I was the one who reduced my college course load to care for her. Ryan continued his life normally in another city. After my mother's recovery in 2012, she couldn't work full-time anymore due to the chemotherapy effects. We decided I would take on part of the house expenses, including half the mortgage. In 2017, when the house needed refinancing due to financial problems, my name was added to the deed as a co-owner under joint tenancy with right of survivorship, with the verbal understanding that I would eventually inherit my mother's part. The agreement was clear. I would pay $250 monthly, half the total mortgage, and would own 50% of the property, with rights to the other half in the future. Every month, like clockwork, I transferred the money. Never late. Not even once. I still remember the day we signed the paperwork at the bank, the loan officer explaining what joint tenancy meant, my mother nodding along, saying how this was the perfect arrangement since I had been so helpful with the finances. "Alexandra always steps up," she told the loan officer with that proud smile. "I don't know what I'd do without her." What she didn't mention was how she would complain to her friends that I was still living at home at my age, as if I wasn't there by her request, as if I wasn't paying half the mortgage, as if I wasn't maintaining the entire property. When the refrigerator broke down in 2019, I was the one who paid $1,800 for a new one. When the roof needed repairs in 2021, I contributed $6,400, well over my 50% share. It's an investment in our home, I told myself. Our home. What a joke that turned out to be. Meanwhile, Ryan visited once a month, bringing takeout food and stories about his latest adventures. He never opened his wallet, never offered to help with repairs, never even mowed the lawn. But he was the golden child, the one who had potential, the one who would make something of himself. I was just the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who would always be there, until I wasn't. The worst part wasn't even the financial burden. It was the constant reminder that no matter what I did, no matter how much I sacrificed, I would never measure up to my younger brother in my mother's eyes. Ryan's starting his MBA program, she would announce proudly to anyone who would listen. When they asked about me, she would say, "Oh, Alex is still working at that accounting office," as if my career was just some temporary job, not the thing that kept a roof over her head. When I received a promotion to administrative manager in 2023, I was ecstatic. Finally, some recognition for my hard work. I called my mother immediately to share the news. "That's nice, dear," she said, distracted. "Did you hear Ryan's considering buying a vacation property? Isn't that exciting?" I swallowed my disappointment like I always did and changed the subject. In family photos, Ryan was always positioned next to Mom. I was always on the edge, sometimes half cropped out, a visual representation of my place in the family hierarchy. Still, I persisted, believing that one day my dedication would be acknowledged, that one day I would be seen as more than just the family workhorse. That day never came. Instead, I got betrayal served on a silver platter, one that I had probably paid for myself. The illusion of the perfect family. Despite signs of favoritism, I continued doing everything for them. I organized all family holidays, drove 3 hours to pick up my mother for semi-annual medical follow-up appointments, and renovated the entire kitchen with my own money in 2019. When Ryan married Melissa, a corporate lawyer from a wealthy family in 2021, I noticed how differently they were treated. They would come for Sunday lunch and be received like royalty. Melissa traveled constantly to other cities and even internationally for important cases from her firm, rarely having time to get involved in family financial matters. Her focus was her own career. And she left the Parker family matters for Ryan to manage, as she herself said. "How lucky your mother is to have Alex to take care of her day to day," Melissa commented once, sipping the wine I had bought. That Thanksgiving of 2023, I noticed how my mother lit up when they talked about Ryan's plans to open his own business. When I mentioned my promotion at work as an administrative manager at an accounting office, she just nodded and changed the subject. Still, I continued renovating the house, planting flowers in the garden my mother loved so much, and believing that one day I would be recognized. Every Sunday dinner followed the same script. Ryan and Melissa would arrive an hour late. My mother would hug them as if they had returned from war. I would serve the meal I had spent all day preparing. "Oh, Alex, you shouldn't have gone to so much trouble," my mother would say, but her tone made it clear it was expected, required, my role. The conversation would center around Ryan's latest achievements, his business ideas, Melissa's important cases, their vacation plans, their future. When I would try to share something about my work or my friends, the interest would last precisely 2 minutes before someone changed the subject. "That's nice, Alex. Ryan, tell us more about that investment opportunity you mentioned." I kept telling myself it was fine, that families weren't perfect, that at least we had each other. What a fool I was. There were moments that should have been red flags, like when my mother created a new will in 2022 but was strangely secretive about its contents. Or when I overheard her on the phone with Ryan discussing the house situation, only to abruptly change topics when she realized I was within earshot. But I pushed these concerns aside, focused instead on being the perfect daughter, the reliable one. I redecorated my mother's bedroom as a surprise for her 65th birthday in 2023, installed a garden bench where she could sit and read in the afternoons, planned a surprise party where I invited all her friends. "You didn't need to do all this," she said, but accepted the praise from her friends about what a wonderful daughter she had. Behind closed doors, though, she complained that I had chosen the wrong shade of paint for her room, that the garden bench wasn't positioned correctly, that I had invited people she wasn't that close with anymore. Nothing was ever good enough, but I kept trying, kept believing that one day she would see me, really see me. Do you guys also continue investing in relationships that clearly aren't reciprocal? Tell me about a time you did much more for someone than you received in return. Drop it in the comments below. I remember walking through the house late at night sometimes, touching the walls I had painted, the countertops I had installed, the garden I had planted, and thinking, half of this is mine. At least I have that security. Security. Another joke that life had prepared for me, because while I was building a home, they were plotting to take it away from me, and I had no idea what was coming. The discovery that broke my heart. On December 15th, 2024, I was organizing tax documents in the home office, preparing to file my taxes early, when I found a folder with legal documents I didn't recognize. My work at the accounting office gave me enough knowledge to understand exactly what I was seeing. Inside the folder, a partial gift deed contract signed 8 months earlier transferring 25% of my mother's property ownership to Ryan, with an attached memorandum indicating the intention to transfer the other 25% the following year. The signing date was her birthday, the day I had organized a surprise party while they, apparently, were at the notary office. Most shocking, a printed email between my mother and her lawyer questioning if I could legally contest the transfer, since my name was on the deed. The lawyer's response suggested making the transfers in stages and keeping everything secret until they could resolve the situation with Alexandra. The lawyer specifically mentioned that the transfer was legally questionable due to the type of co-ownership we had, but my mother had insisted on proceeding. A detail that made me understand why they thought I would never discover it. There was a handwritten note from my mother saying, "Alexandra never checks the legal documents. She's always too busy with work and taking care of the house." Sitting on the floor of that office, with papers trembling in my hands, I realized that while I had contributed $105,000 over the past 7 years, since my name was added to the deed, they were planning to leave me with nothing. The contract even had a handwritten observation. Alexandra will continue paying her share of the mortgage as per previous agreement. It was as if the entire world had stopped. I took photos of the documents, put everything back in the exact place, and went out to walk for hours, trying to process the betrayal. The folder was light blue, unmarked, sitting at the bottom of a stack of insurance papers in the desk drawer. Normally, I would never have looked in that drawer, which my mother considered her private space. It was only my need to find all the tax documents that led me to search there. My hands trembled as I opened it. The legal language jumped out at me immediately. Transfer of property interest, gift deed, partial ownership reassignment. As I read through the documents, each word felt like a physical blow. The transfer was dated April 22nd, my mother's birthday, the day I had spent weeks planning a surprise party for her, the day I had taken off work to decorate the house and prepare her favorite meal. While I was hanging streamers, they were at a notary office signing away what was legally mine. The email exchange between my mother and her lawyer was printed and stapled to the back of the transfer document. The lawyer had expressed concerns. "Mrs. Parker, I must advise you that this type of transfer is legally questionable given the joint tenancy arrangement you have with your daughter. She would have grounds to contest this transfer should she discover it." My mother's response, "She won't find out. She never checks these things. Just proceed as we discussed." There was another line in her email that struck me like a slap. "Alexandra would never sue me. She values family above everything else." The handwritten note was scrawled in the margin of the email printout. "Alexandra never checks the legal documents. She's always too busy with work and taking care of the house." They weren't just betraying me. They were counting on my dedication to the household as the perfect cover for their scheme. The memorandum outlined their future plans. Transfer the remaining 25% the following year. Maintain the appearance that I was still a co-owner until they could figure out how to resolve the Alexandra situation, whatever that meant. And the kicker, Alexandra will continue paying her share of the mortgage as per previous agreement. They wanted me to keep paying for a house they were secretly taking away from me. 7 years, $105,000, countless hours of maintenance, renovations, and care, all for nothing. I carefully photographed each document with my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I had to take multiple shots of each page to ensure at least one was clear. Then I meticulously replaced everything exactly as I had found it. Closed the drawer, walked to my room, and for the first time in years I allowed myself to really cry. Not the quiet tears I had trained myself to shed, but deep, body-racking sobs that left me gasping for air. When I had no tears left, I got in my car and drove, for hours, no destination in mind, just driving through the cold December night, trying to process the depth of this betrayal. My entire world had just been shattered, and they had no idea I knew. The validation I needed. I called my best friend, Kate, who was also a legal assistant at a law firm. She immediately came to meet me at a cafe. When I showed her the photos of the documents, her eyes filled with tears before mine did. "Alex, this isn't just a breach of trust. It's legally questionable," she said, holding my hands across the table. "Your name is on the deed as a co-owner in joint tenancy. By law, They can't simply transfer the property without your consent. This document may not even have legal validity. Kate was the first person who didn't try to minimize what had happened or make me see their side. She simply validated my pain and anger, and that gave me the clarity I needed. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to talk to a real estate law specialist," I replied, determined to understand my legal options. I'll never forget the look on Kate's face when she saw those documents. Unlike me, she didn't try to hold back her emotions. "This is," she started, then stopped, shaking her head. "Alex, I don't even have words. After everything you've done for them?" We were sitting in a quiet corner of the cafe, huddled over my phone as I showed her the pictures one by one, each swipe of the screen revealing another layer of betrayal. "I keep thinking maybe I misunderstood something," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "that there's some explanation that would make this okay." Kate took my hands in hers. Her grip was firm, grounding me. "There is no explanation that makes this okay," she said firmly. "None. This is a deliberate attempt to steal what's legally yours, and they were counting on your trust and dedication to get away with it." Coming from someone else, the words hit differently, made it real in a way I couldn't deny. "The joint tenancy arrangement means you each own 50% of the property, and neither of you can transfer your share without the other's consent," Kate explained, her legal background kicking in. "What they attempted to do isn't just morally wrong, it's legally invalid." "So the transfer might not even be legal?" I asked, a flicker of hope igniting. "From what I can see in these photos, no. But you need to consult with a specialist in property law to be certain," she advised. "I know someone at our firm who might be able to help, or at least point you in the right direction." For the first time since finding those documents, I felt something other than devastation, a tiny spark of righteous anger, of determination. "I've given everything to them," I said, my voice growing stronger. "Years of my life, thousands of dollars, and this is how they repay me?" "You don't deserve this," Kate affirmed. "No one does, but especially not you, Alex. Not after everything you've sacrificed for them." She pulled out a notebook from her purse and began writing. "Here's the name and number of Mark Santos. He's a real estate attorney who specializes in exactly these kinds of cases. He's tough but fair." I took the paper, folding it carefully and placing it in my wallet. "What if I'm overreacting?" I asked, doubt creeping back in. "What if confronting them makes everything worse? Worse than them secretly trying to take your house while expecting you to keep paying the mortgage?" Kate asked pointedly. "Alex, they're already showing you who they really are. Now you need to decide what you're going to do with that information." She was right. The time for giving them the benefit of the doubt was over. "I'll call him tomorrow," I promised. "And Alex?" Kate added, her expression serious. "Don't tell them you know. Not yet. Get all the legal advice first. Understand your options, then decide how to proceed." As we left the cafe, Kate pulled me into a tight hug. "You're not alone in this," she whispered. "Whatever you decide to do, I'm with you all the way." For the first time in days, I felt a weight lift. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't overreacting, and most importantly, I wasn't alone. The plan takes shape. The following week, I discreetly consulted with a real estate law specialist, Mark Santos. After analyzing my documents, he confirmed the attempt to transfer 25% of my mother's property to Ryan without my knowledge or consent was legally invalid. "Your type of co-ownership is joint tenancy with right of survivorship," explained Santos. "This means you and your mother are equal co-owners, and neither can transfer their part without the other's consent. If one of you passes away, the other automatically inherits the complete part. This attempted transfer has no legal validity." "What are my options?" I asked. "We have several," he answered. "We can directly contest the transfer attempt, which will likely be voided by the court, or we can initiate a partition action, which would force the sale of the property and division of profits between the legal co-owners, in this case, you and your mother." "How long would this take?" I asked. "Partition processes typically take 6 months to a year, depending on complexity and whether the other party contests," he replied. "But we can start immediately." Meanwhile, I continued acting normally at home, preparing Christmas dinner as I always did, decorating the living room with the new set of lights I had bought, and pretending I knew nothing. I noticed whispered conversations between my mother and Ryan that abruptly stopped when I entered the room, and text messages they exchanged with worried looks during pre-Christmas family gatherings. At night, alone in my room, I researched property values in the area. Our house, with the improvements I had made, was worth approximately $420,000. As a legal co-owner of 50%, I would be entitled to at least $210,000. Attorney Santos's office was on the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise worlds away from the suburban home I shared with my mother. The receptionist offered me water in an actual glass, not a plastic cup. Everything about the place spoke of competence and success. Santos himself was a man in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He reviewed the photos of the documents carefully, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "These attempts to transfer property interests," he finally said, looking up at me. "They're what we call void ab initio, invalid from the beginning. The joint tenancy arrangement you have specifically prevents this kind of unilateral transfer." Relief washed over me. So it didn't work? The transfer? Legally speaking, no. But the fact that they attempted it is concerning, and the documented intent to continue transferring ownership away from you requires action on our part. He laid out my options in clear terms. We could file to invalidate the attempted transfer, essentially returning to the status quo. Or we could file for partition, a legal process to divide the property. Since the property can't physically be divided, it's a single-family home, the court would order a sale and division of proceeds, he explained. As a 50% owner, you would receive half of the sale price, minus any outstanding mortgage balance. And my mother couldn't stop this? I asked. She could contest it, delay it, but ultimately, no. Any co-owner has the right to partition. It's one of the fundamental rights of property co-ownership. He quoted his retainer fee, $3,500. Not a small amount, but a worthwhile investment to protect my $210,000 stake in the property. "Take some time to think about which direction you want to go," he advised. "But don't wait too long. The fact that they're actively working to disenfranchise you suggests urgency." That evening, I drove through our neighborhood, looking at the houses with new eyes. The Miller family's colonial with the wraparound porch, the Johnsons' ranch-style home with the basketball hoop in the driveway, the Garcia's two-story with the beautiful rose garden, and our house, the house I had helped maintain and improve for years, the house that was legally half mine, the house they were trying to take from me. I pulled up real estate listings on my phone. Similar homes in our area were selling for between $410,000 and $435,000. With the improvements I'd made, the new kitchen, the updated bathrooms, the landscaping, we might even be at the higher end of that range. After the mortgage was paid off, my share would be substantial, enough for a fresh start somewhere new. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the future, about possibilities I had never allowed myself to consider before. A life where I put myself first. A life where my contributions were valued. A life without the constant emotional drain of trying to earn love and approval that would never come. For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. Hope. The decision. No one expected. 2 days before Christmas, I made my decision after another consultation with the lawyer. I signed the initial documents to contest the illegal transfer and initiate a partition process. As a legitimate co-owner, I had the right to request the sale of the property and fair division of profits. The lawyer explained that formal notification would only be sent after the end-of-year holidays, but that I could already start looking for another place to live, since the process would eventually lead to the sale of the house. I also contacted several developers who were developing projects in the area. One of them, Horizon Development, showed preliminary interest in our property due to its strategic location. "Your house is on the corner lot of the block we've been trying to acquire for our new luxury condominium project," said the developer's representative. "We've already purchased 4 other properties on your street, and yours would give us the street frontage we need. If the court orders the sale of the property, we would like to be notified to make an offer. We can't make a formal offer while the case is in litigation, but we definitely have interest." I continued pretending everything was fine, but began discreetly organizing my personal belongings and researching transfer opportunities within my company to offices in other states. The weight of the decision settled on me like a physical thing. Was I really going to do this? Force the sale of the family home? Make my mother and brother face the consequences of their actions? Then I remembered the coldness in the legal documents, the calculated betrayal, the years of being used and undervalued. Yes, I was really going to do this. After signing the partition action paperwork in Santos's office, I felt strangely calm. It was done. There was no turning back now. "The formal notifications won't be sent until after the holidays," Santos explained. "That gives you some time to prepare, and them some time to enjoy their last Christmas in that house." There was a certain poetic justice to it. One last Christmas, with them not knowing what was coming, just like I hadn't known what they were planning behind my back. That afternoon, I drove to the other side of town to meet with a representative from Horizon Development. Ted Markham was a friendly man in his 40s who specialized in acquiring properties for the company's expansion projects. "Your location is actually perfect for what we're looking to develop next year," he explained, showing me renderings of a luxury condominium complex they were planning. "We've been buying properties in your neighborhood systematically for the past 18 months. Your corner lot is particularly valuable to us because of the street access." He unfolded a map of the neighborhood, with several lots already highlighted in the company's colors. "We've acquired these 4 properties already," he said, pointing to houses I recognized. "Your property would connect these parcels and give us the footprint we need for phase 1 of the development. So you'd be interested if the property becomes available?" I asked. "Very interested," he confirmed. "Of course, we can't make any formal offers while there's ongoing litigation, but once the court orders the sale, we'd be prepared to move quickly." He gave me his card, with his direct line written on the back. "Call me when things progress," he said. "And Ms. Parker, for what it's worth, you're making a smart business decision here." That night, I began the process of applying for internal transfers within my company. They had offices in several states, and my performance reviews had always been stellar. A fresh start somewhere far from Ohio sounded perfect. California caught my eye immediately. The Ventura office had an opening for an administrative manager, exactly my current position. The salary was higher to account for the cost of living difference, and the location, right near the coast. I had always wanted to live near the ocean. I submitted my application that night, along with a letter explaining my need for relocation due to personal circumstances. By morning, I had an email from the regional director expressing interest in my application and suggesting a video interview the following week. Things were moving fast, falling into place in a way that felt almost predestined. That evening, as I sat in the living room watching my mother hang the Christmas ornaments I had bought, I felt a strange detachment. This would be the last Christmas in this house, the last time we would go through these motions together, and they had no idea. "Alex, could you hand me that box of silver ornaments?" my mother asked. I passed her the box, our fingers briefly touching. Did she feel it? The finality of this moment? "Thanks, dear," she said, turning back to the tree. "What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below." The confrontation at Christmas dinner. The table was set, the food I had prepared all day was steaming on the plates, and the whole family was gathered. My mother, Ryan, and Melissa, who had just returned from a 2-week business trip to London, some uncles and cousins. As always, I was the one who organized everything, from the decoration to the last detail of the menu. During dinner, the conversation revolved around Ryan's achievements and his plans to open his own business next year. When I casually mentioned I was thinking of moving to California for a possible transfer within my company, I immediately noticed how tense my mother became. "You can't move, Alexandra," she said abruptly. "Who will take care of the house? Who will help me with everything?" It was at that moment that Ryan added, "Besides, you could never afford to buy your own place in California with the current market. Better stay here where you don't have to worry about rent." The knowledge of their secret plans made those words unbearably hypocritical. I took a deep breath, trying to control my anger. "Actually," I began, keeping my voice calm, "I have some savings you don't know about. I could easily make a down payment on an apartment." My mother seemed irritated by this statement, as if I were hiding something from her. The irony was almost comical. "Always thinking of yourself," she muttered, before saying the words that sealed everything. "Your presence here is a disgrace to us. Always talking about money and work, ruining our family celebration." The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone at the table seemed shocked by the cruelty of those words. I just smiled, raised my glass, and toasted, "To family." The dining room was fragrant with roasted turkey, cranberry sauce, and freshly baked rolls, all prepared by me, of course. Crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier light, the chandelier I had cleaned just the day before. Uncle Pete was telling a story about his new fishing boat when I casually dropped my news. "I'm considering a transfer to our Ventura office," I said during a lull in conversation. "The position's exactly what I'm doing now, but with better pay and, well, it's California." I hadn't expected the reaction to be quite so immediate or intense. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. "California? You can't be serious, Alexandra." "I'm very serious," I replied, taking a sip of wine. "The interview went well, and they're eager to have someone with my experience." "But that's across the country," she protested, her voice rising. "What about the house? What about all your responsibilities here?" Before I could answer, Ryan jumped in. "Come on, Alex. Be realistic. Have you seen housing prices in California? You'd be living in some tiny apartment instead of a nice house like this." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable, as if I hadn't done my research, as if I was a child making impulsive decisions. "Actually," I said, keeping my tone light, "I've been saving quite aggressively. I have enough for a decent down payment." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Savings? What savings? You should be contributing more to the household if you have extra money." The audacity was breathtaking. After everything they had tried to do, she was suggesting I should give them more money. "I believe I contribute my fair share," I replied. "Half the mortgage, most of the renovations, all of the maintenance." "There you go again. my mother interrupted, her voice sharp. Always keeping score, always making everything about money. Melissa, to her credit, looked uncomfortable. The renovations you've done have really increased the home's value, she offered, clearly trying to diffuse the tension. My mother shot her a look that could freeze fire. This isn't about money, my mother said, though of course it was exactly about money. It's about family, about responsibility, about not running away the moment something better comes along. I could feel the anger building in my chest, threatening to overflow. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I've been responsible for a long time, Mom, I said quietly. Maybe it's time someone else took a turn. That's when she said it. The words that confirmed everything I already knew about how she saw me. Always thinking of yourself, she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Then, looking directly at me, your presence here is a disgrace to us. Always talking about money and work, ruining our family celebration. The table went silent. Uncle Pete stared at his plate. Aunt Sarah's mouth fell open. Even Ryan looked shocked at the naked cruelty of her words. In that moment, any doubt I might have had vanished. Any guilt about the legal proceedings already in motion disappeared. I just smiled, picked up my glass of wine, and raised it in a toast. To family, I said, my voice never wavering, in all its complicated glory. Then I took a bite of the turkey I had spent hours preparing, savoring the taste of what would be my last Christmas dinner in that house. And nobody at that table had any idea what was coming. The manipulation attempt. 3 days after Christmas, my mother acted as if nothing had happened. She entered the kitchen while I was making coffee and said, Alex, dear, I've been thinking, you work so hard to help with the bills. Maybe we should review the mortgage agreement. The hypocrisy was unbelievable. Had she discovered that I knew about the transfer attempt? What kind of revision are you thinking, Mom? I asked innocently. Well, you know Ryan is trying to open his own business. He'll need some financial security. We were thinking that maybe we could include his name on the deed too, since he'll inherit the house eventually. It took all my self-control not to confront her right then. Instead, I replied, let's talk about this after New Year's. I have some ideas about our financial arrangement too. That afternoon, I received a call from my lawyer confirming that the documents were ready and would be officially delivered the first week of January. Later, Ryan called me, his voice strangely friendly. Alex, I was thinking, you've always wanted this house so much. And since you pay part of the mortgage, maybe we could make a deal for you to eventually buy part of it. What part exactly? Ryan? I asked, feigning ignorance. Well, you know, Mom won't be around forever. When the time comes, we could split the property between us. Too late, Ryan. Too late. The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls, the ones my mother loved, that I had baked that morning despite everything. Keeping up appearances was exhausting, but necessary. My mother leaned against the counter, watching me pour my coffee. She looked almost nervous, which was unusual for her. Alex, dear, she began, her voice deliberately casual. I've been thinking, you work so hard to help with the bills. Maybe we should review the mortgage agreement. I nearly dropped my mug. Was this a trap? Had she somehow discovered that I knew about their scheme? I kept my face neutral, adding a splash of cream to my coffee before responding. What kind of revision are you thinking, Mom? My voice was the perfect blend of innocence and mild interest. She fidgeted with her robe tie, not quite meeting my eyes. Well, you know Ryan is trying to open his own business. He'll need some financial security. I waited, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. We were thinking, she finally continued, that maybe we could include his name on the deed too, since he'll inherit the house eventually. The audacity was almost impressive. After secretly attempting to transfer her half to Ryan, a transfer that had failed legally, she was now trying to get me to voluntarily add him to the deed. I took a slow sip of coffee, using the moment to compose myself. That's an interesting suggestion, I said carefully. Let's talk about this after New Year's. I have some ideas about our financial arrangement too. She seemed relieved by my non-committal response. Wonderful. I'm sure we can work something out that benefits everyone. Everyone except me, of course. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. Mark Santos. The documents are ready, he confirmed. We'll file everything officially right after the new year, and the formal notifications will go out the first week of January. Thank you, I replied, keeping my voice down despite being alone in my room. Is there anything else I need to do before then? Just be prepared for their reaction, he advised. Once they receive the legal notice, things might get uncomfortable. That was putting it mildly. My phone rang again less than an hour later. Ryan. His name on my screen made my stomach clench. Hey, sis, he greeted, his voice unnaturally cheerful. Got a minute to talk? Sure, I replied, matching his casual tone. What's up? So, I was talking with Mom earlier, he began, and I immediately knew where this was heading. About the house and everything you've contributed over the years. I said nothing, waiting. And I was thinking, he continued, filling the silence. You've always wanted this house so much. And since you pay part of the mortgage, maybe we could make a deal for you to eventually buy part of it. The hypocrisy was staggering. They had tried to cut me out entirely, and now they were presenting this as some kind of generous offer. What part exactly, Ryan? I asked, my voice perfectly innocent. He hesitated, clearly not expecting the direct question. Well, Mom won't be around forever. When the time comes, we could split the property between us. I almost laughed. They were scrambling, trying to secure some legal claim for Ryan before the truth came out. That's an interesting proposition, I said neutrally. Let me think about it. Great, he replied, sounding relieved. We can discuss details after the holidays. No rush. Oh, but there was a rush. They just didn't know it yet. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to manipulate you after hurting you? How did you react? Let me know in the comments. The moment of truth. In the second week of January 2025, the legal documents were finally delivered. A lawsuit contesting the property transfer attempt and requesting partition through sale was officially filed. My mother and Ryan received the formal notifications on a day when I was purposely at work. When I arrived home that night, I found my mother in tears and Ryan furiously pacing the living room. What did you do? He shouted, waving the papers in my direction. I defended my legal interests. I responded calmly, exactly as you did when you tried to transfer part of the house without my knowledge. My mother raised her red eyes. How did you find out? Does it matter? Were you ever planning to tell me? The silence was answer enough. I'm moving out at the end of the month, I informed them. I'll continue paying my share of the mortgage until the legal process is completed to protect my credit history and strengthen my legal position, but I won't contribute to other house expenses anymore. You can't sue us, my mother protested. We're family. Family doesn't betray family, Mom. Family doesn't secretly plan to take what is legally mine. Ryan tried to change tactics. We can resolve this between us, Alex. We don't need lawyers. The documents I found say otherwise. Ryan, you already consulted lawyers about how to remove me from the deed without me being able to contest it. What about mediation? Ryan suggested, his voice softening. We could work with a family mediator to find a solution that works for everyone. Mediation works when both parties are acting in good faith, I replied, repeating Santos's exact words. You've already demonstrated that you aren't. The January rain pounded against the windows as I pulled into the driveway that evening. Through the curtains, I could see movement, agitated, frantic movement. They had received the legal notices. I sat in my car for a moment, taking deep breaths. This confrontation had been coming for weeks. I was ready. The moment I stepped through the door, Ryan was on me. What the hell is this? He shouted, thrusting papers in my face. His cheeks were flushed, a vein pulsing in his forehead. I set down my purse and removed my coat with deliberate calm before answering. Those appear to be legal documents, I said, my voice steady. Don't play dumb. A partition action? Contesting Mom's gift deed? His voice cracked with rage. You're suing your own family. From the living room, I could hear my mother sobbing, theatrical, heaving sobs that had always worked to manipulate me in the past. Not this time. I defended my legal interests, I replied, looking him directly in the eye. Exactly as you did when you tried to transfer part of the house without my knowledge. Ryan's expression flickered surprise, then guilt, quickly masked by more anger. That was different. That was fraud, I supplied. An illegal attempt to transfer property that wasn't solely Mom's to give? I walked past him into the living room. My mother sat on the couch, tissues scattered around her, eyes red and swollen. She looked up at me, her expression wounded and accusatory. How did you find out? No denial, no explanation. Just the disappointment that I had caught them. Does it matter? I asked quietly. Were you ever planning to tell me? The silence stretched between us, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock, the one I had restored 2 summers ago. I thought not, I finally said. You can't do this to us, my mother said, her voice thin and desperate. Where will we go? How will we afford another place? You'll have half the proceeds from the sale, I pointed out. After the mortgage is paid off, that should be enough for a down payment on something suitable. You can't sue us, she protested, her voice rising. We're family. I almost laughed at the irony. Family doesn't betray family, Mom. Family doesn't secretly plan to take what is legally mine. Ryan stepped closer, his tactics shifting. His voice softened, became cajoling. Listen, Alex. We all said things, did things we regret. We can resolve this between us. We don't need lawyers. The documents I found say otherwise, Ryan. You already consulted lawyers about how to remove me from the deed without me being able to contest it. He flinched at the direct reference to their scheme. I'm moving out at the end of the month, I continued, my decision long made. I'll continue paying my share of the mortgage until the legal process is completed to protect my credit history and strengthen my legal position, but I won't contribute to other house expenses anymore. You can't just abandon us, my mother cried. I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman who had raised me, the woman who had betrayed me, and I felt nothing. The pain was still there, but distant now, like an old injury that only aches when it rains. I'm not abandoning you, I said quietly. I'm freeing myself, and for the first time in my adult life, I walked away from their drama without a backward glance. The last card. During the following months, the legal process followed its course. Ryan hired a lawyer to contest my action, claiming that the property transfer was a legitimate gift from our mother to him. My lawyer countered by presenting our joint tenancy contract and the specific state laws that invalidated such a transfer without the consent of all co-owners. In March, I moved to a rented apartment in another part of the city while the process continued. My mother alternated between calling me crying, begging me to withdraw the lawsuit, and sending me furious messages accusing me of betraying the family. A preliminary hearing was scheduled for April. The week before, I received an unexpected message from Melissa, Ryan's wife. Alex, I know you must hate me too, but I need you to know that I had no idea what they did. I was in London for the last 2 weeks of December working on an important corporate merger. And before that, I spent 3 months traveling constantly between San Francisco and New York for another case. Ryan told me you had an agreement where you would continue paying the mortgage in exchange for living there. He never mentioned that your name was on the deed, or that the transfer was made without your knowledge. I just found out the truth and I'm horrified. I'm not asking you to forgive anyone. I just wanted you to know that not everyone was in on this conspiracy against you. The last attempt came in the form of a family meeting called by an uncle 2 weeks before the final hearing in June. Everyone pressured me to find a solution that would keep the family together. When I calmly explained what they had done to me over the years, silence took over the room. The sale of the house will probably be ordered by the court at the end of the month, I informed them. Horizon Development has already indicated formal interest. I suggest you start looking for another place to live. Spring brought rain and with it depositions, legal filings, counter-arguments, the slow, grinding wheels of the justice system. Ryan's lawyer was aggressive, filing motion after motion to delay the inevitable. My mother's health suddenly became a concern. The stress was exacerbating her old conditions, they claimed. They needed more time. They deserved special consideration. Mark Santos calmly brushed aside each delaying tactic. This is textbook, he assured me. When they can't win on the merits of the case, they try to win on sympathy. The judge won't be swayed. He was right. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, saw through the manipulation and kept the case moving forward. Surprisingly, she accelerated our case due to the clear attempt at fraud through documents, something Santos told me was rare but possible in these circumstances. Meanwhile, I settled into my small apartment across town. It wasn't much: 1 bedroom, a galley kitchen, a living room barely big enough for a couch and TV, but it was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could make me feel like an unwelcome guest. My mother's calls came daily at first. Tearful pleas, angry accusations, attempts at guilt that once would have worked flawlessly. How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you? What will the neighbors think? Is this how you repay my years of sacrifice? I let them go to voicemail. Eventually, they tapered off. The neighbors, who for years had seen me caring for the house and my mother, were divided between embarrassment and curiosity. Some sent messages of support, others avoided me completely, probably hearing only the version of the story my mother told. Then came the unexpected message from Melissa. I read it 3 times, trying to gauge its sincerity. Part of me wanted to dismiss it as another manipulation tactic, but something about it rang true. I responded simply, "Thank you for letting me know." There had been sporadic attempts at conversations in the previous month's phone calls from concerned aunts, messages from cousins wanting to understand both sides, but nothing as organized as this final desperate meeting. The final desperate attempt came 2 weeks before the June hearing. Uncle Pete called, his voice grave. "Alex, the family is getting together this Sunday. We need to talk about this situation before it goes any further." I almost declined, but curiosity won out. What could they possibly say now? The family gathering was at Uncle Pete's house, neutral territory. When I arrived, they were all there. Aunts, uncles, cousins. My mother, looking frailer than I remembered. Ryan, tight-lipped and tense. Uncle Pete took charge immediately. "We're here to find a compromise, to keep this family together." One by one, they made their appeals. The importance of family, the value of forgiveness, the tragedy of legal battles between blood relations. Not one of them acknowledged what had been done to me. When they finished, the room fell silent. All eyes on me. "Thank you all for your concern," I began, my voice steady. "But there's something you should know." I pulled copies of the documents from my purse, the transfer attempt, the lawyer's email, my mother's handwritten note. "This is what they tried to do to me," I said, passing the papers around. "After 7 years of paying half the mortgage, after thousands of dollars in renovations, after putting my own life on hold to care for Mom after her cancer." The silence took on a different quality as understanding dawned. Aunt Sarah's hand went to her mouth. Cousin Mike's eyes widened. By the expression of genuine shock on the faces of my uncles and cousins, it was evident that my mother and Ryan had told them a very different version of the story. "The sale of the house will probably be ordered by the court at the end of the month," I continued, my voice calm and factual. "Horizon Development has already indicated formal interest. I suggest you start looking for another place to live." I stood, gathering my purse. I didn't want this fight. I didn't start it, but I will finish it. As I walked out, no one tried to stop me. The new Alexandra. Today, 4 months after the conclusion of the legal process, I live in a small apartment about 15 minutes from the beach in Ventura, California. It's not in a luxury area, but in a pleasant neighborhood where I used part of the money from the sale as a down payment and financed the rest with a 30-year mortgage. From my balcony, I can see a small slice of the Pacific Ocean between the buildings. I was lucky to get a transfer to the West Coast office of my company, where I continue working in accounting. The house was finally sold for $435,000 to Horizon Development, which had shown interest from the beginning. After the court voided the illegal attempt to transfer 25% of the property and fully recognized my rights as a co-owner, I received $217,500, half of the total sale value. I used $175,000 as a down payment on my apartment and went back to school, finally completing the business administration course I had abandoned to take care of the family. I also started my own online consulting business in financial management for women, inspired by my own experience, which I run on weekends as extra income. My mother and Ryan received $217,500 from the sale, the same amount I did. But unlike me, they chose to rent an apartment instead of buying, probably because Ryan needed capital for his business. Ironically, from what I've heard, the business never took off. They ended up moving to a small rented apartment, and the developer began demolishing the house to build a luxury condominium. Sometimes I receive updates on the construction progress from former neighbors, and I feel a strange mix of sadness and liberation. Melissa and Ryan ended up divorcing a few months later, apparently. The betrayal wasn't just aimed at me. She sent me a Christmas card last year, a peace offering perhaps, or just an acknowledgement that not all bridges need to be burned. Kate came to visit last month, and as we walked on the beach, she asked, "Do you regret it? Defending what was legally mine? No. Losing the family I thought I had? Every day." The truth is that I never had the family I imagined. I just had people who took advantage of my loyalty and hard work. Christmas this year will be different. No elaborate decorations, no cooking for 12 people, no pretending everything is fine when it's not. Instead, I booked a trip to Hawaii. I'll spend Christmas on the beach, celebrating my freedom and the fact that, finally, I put myself first. For all of you watching who identify with this story, remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. Sometimes, the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into, and it's never too late to start over. Thank you for watching this far. This is Alexandra, reminding you that you deserve to be valued, respected, and loved. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming, and leave in the comments if you've ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members. The morning sun streams through my balcony doors, casting golden light across the hardwood floors of my Ventura apartment. From where I sit with my coffee, I can see a sliver of the Pacific Ocean, a constant, calming presence in my new life. Sometimes I still wake up disoriented, expecting to hear my mother's voice calling for me, expecting to feel that familiar weight of obligation pressing down on my chest. But those moments are becoming rarer. The walls of my apartment are painted a soft, seafoam green, my choice, not a compromise. The furniture is modern and minimal pieces I selected because I loved them, not because they were practical for someone else's needs or matched someone else's taste. On my bookshelf sits the business administration degree I finally completed at 35, framed in silver, a testament to the fact that it's never too late to finish what you started. Beside it, a photograph of Kate and me on the beach during her visit, both of us laughing into the camera, the wind tangling our hair. My online financial consulting business has grown beyond my expectations. What started as weekend work has developed into a community of women sharing similar stories of financial abuse, of family betrayal, of finally taking control of their own economic destiny. "You turned your pain into purpose," one client told me last week. Her words have stayed with me. A reminder that sometimes our deepest wounds become our greatest gifts to others. I still get emails from my mother occasionally. The tone has shifted from anger to a peculiar kind of wounded bewilderment, as if she still can't quite understand why I did what I did. Ryan never writes. Melissa sent a Christmas card last year, a peace offering, perhaps. Or maybe just an acknowledgement that not all bridges need to be burned. Former neighbors send me photos of the construction site that was once our family home. The foundation has been expanded, the frame of the new condominium rising higher than our old two-story ever stood. There's something poetic about it, the old making way for the new, bigger and stronger than before. Kate visited last month, her first trip to California since I moved. We spent a day walking the beaches of Ventura, collecting shells and talking about everything and nothing. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in impossible shades of pink and gold, she asked the question I knew had been on her mind. Do you regret it? I considered the question carefully, watching the waves roll in and out, their rhythm ancient and unchanging. Defending what was legally mine? No. Losing the family I thought I had? Every day. She nodded, understanding the complexity of my answer. But the family I thought I had never really existed, I continued. It was a story I told myself because the truth was too painful to accept. I was never valued the way I deserved to be. This Christmas will be my first completely free of old obligations and expectations. No elaborate decorations to hang. No massive dinner to prepare. No pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Instead, I'll be in Hawaii, feeling the sand between my toes and the sun on my face. A gift to myself, paid for with my share of the house that was always partly mine. For all of you watching who identify with this story, who see echoes of your own experiences in mine, remember this. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. Sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. And it's never too late to start over. To rewrite your story with yourself as the protagonist, not just a supporting character in someone else's narrative. Thank you for watching this far. This is Alexandra, reminding you that you deserve to be valued, respected, and loved not for what you can provide, but simply for who you are. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of overcoming, and leave in the comments if you've ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members. Your story matters too.